circa 1911, first email service started in India, the airmail service. Circa 1932, first Indian women pilot, Miss Urmila Parikh. 1946, Air India was born. 72, IAI, 81, Vayudut, 91, Open Sky Policy, 99, CIAL, first airport in PPP scheme, and 2007, Regional Airlines Policy. 2010, Airport Economic Regulatory Authority Appellate Tribunal was formed. 2019, 9th largest aviation market in the world, circa 2020, May 27, 2020 to be precise, LCA Tejas has been inducted into IAF Squadron, the Flying Bullets. Ladies and gentlemen, circa 2025, India is expected to become the third largest aviation market and supply about 478 million passengers by 2036. There could be a demand for more than 2,000 new aircrafts in India over the next 2 decades, which would be dominated by a single-aisle aircraft. India's defense spending has grown to 62 billion from 15 billion in 2007 at a CAGR of 7%. DRDO has grouped into 7 technology clusters and it garners 5.5% of defense budget. On the technology side, ladies and gentlemen, urban air mobility, the rise of new mode of transportation you can witness, VTOL, digital twins, AIML, simulation, system engineering, composites and advanced materials, UAVs, and much more. With a nose-to-tail manufacturing ecosystem and prominent MSME advantage, the Indian aerospace industry is not only connecting the nation, also taking her to the new heights. India, runway to unlimited possibilities. Given the growth of Indian aerospace industry, especially the research and development ecosystem, country's premier technology Society for Aerospace SAE India decided to expand its largest technical conference, AEROCON 2022. Welcome to the second edition of AEROCON 2022, and in fact, the first edition in person. There are only 5, 7, 9 masks in an 800 capacity auditorium. Welcome to the maskless conference in Bangalore. Good morning, once again. It's a great morning, 15 months of effort, 13 sponsors, 30 technical sessions, and lot many calls, like Mr. Ravi Shankar says, It's a weekly summon, Saturday 10 o'clock calls, and one great venue, HAL Management Academy. I am Venkatraj, DDG SAE India, patriotic Indian and a passionate SAE Indian. I'll be the MC for the inaugural session. May I now please request the dignitaries to come on the dais, and then we'll go for the lighting of the lamp. So may I now call upon Mr. Ravi Shankar Mysore, Chair, Aerospace Forum, SAE India. It's okay to clap early in the morning. Come, Mr. Ravi, please take your seat. So may I now call upon our beloved Madam President, Mrs. Rashmi Urvadeshi, President, SAE India, former Director, ARAI. Please come. Can you please check? May I now call upon our Global Advisor, SAE India and SAE International, Mr. Murli Iyer. May I now call upon the Director General ADA, Dr. Girish Shantaram Diodare. Please come. May I now call upon Dr. Bala Guruna Chidambaram, Director, Boeing. So, can I have the cable? Jack? As they say, we will all start with an auspicious music and the lighting of the lamp. And then we will recognize each of the dignitaries. So may I now request all the dignitaries to light the lamp. Volunteers? We will be playing a music by the jewel of Karnataka, pride of India, Sri Padma Shri, late Kadri Gopalnath, Gajamukhane Ganapatiye music. General Manager of HAL Management Academy, Sir Mr. Shrikant Sharma, you can join us. Please come on stage. Sharmaji, please join us. Yeah. Request Madam President to welcome formally the Director General of ADA, the lady at the other side, volunteer. Please take the bouquet. Photos, please. So may I now request Ravi Shankar Mysore, Chair, SA India Aerospace Forum, to welcome Dr. Bala Guruna Chidambaram of Boeing. Ravi, please welcome our global advisor, Mr. Murli Iyer. And Ravi, please welcome General Manager of HAL Management Academy, Mr. Srikant Sharmaji. Thank you so much, dignitaries. We will very quickly get on to the inaugural session of the second edition of AEROCON 2022. To welcome you, I welcome Madam President, and I wanted to give you a very brief profile about Madam President. She had an illustrious career of 37 years and retired as former Director of ARII, Automotive Research Association of India, which is the premier homologation and testing center of the country. Mrs. Urvashi has a distinguished academic career, and she serves as the chair, vice chair of various national and international bodies. SA India is one of them, and Pune Knowledge Cluster is another. She is also author of several books, especially in the total quality management, and she has been conferred with the Nari Shakti Puraskar Award by Honorable President of India in 2019. And Madam President is known in SA India for smooth handling and decisiveness when it comes to auditing member welfare and technical papers. She is very passionate technocrat, and may I now welcome Madam Rashmi Urvashi, President, SA India, to deliver the welcome address. Madam.
Thank you, Venki, for that introduction. Good morning, everybody. Dr. Girish Devgareji, Mr. Sharma, Ravi Shankar Mysoreji, who is the anchor for this program, my dear friend Murli, who always makes it a point to be always supportive of all those initiatives that SAE India takes, and Dr. Bala, ladies and gentlemen, it's my proud privilege to welcome you all for this second edition of AEROCON, which is organized by SAE India in close cooperation with the industry, with the Government of India, with the great organizations like HAL. This is organized on the similar lines of AEROTEC, which is a premier conference usually organized by SAE International. Taking inspiration from these great events globally organized, SAE India has taken up this initiative, and the result is this second edition of AEROCON in the country. On the backdrop of significant changes, very positive changes that have happened in the aerospace industry, aerospace sector in the country, and I would like to highlight some of them. There's an excellent growth that has been seen and that has been projected as well as coming up, big potential, not just for the country but also at the global level. Another major change that we are witnessing is private partnership, public-private partnership. Industry is coming forward and government is opening up all the, including research, including integration with the existing infrastructure that is getting created. The partnership of industry is very significant. That actually leads a way to creation of great human resource that is required for the country to support the growth. SAE India firmly believes in supporting these needs, and because student community, because the industry, and because government are very, very important stakeholders of SAE India, this is one of the reasons why such an event was curated to support the growth. Another significant change that is happening is the intention and direction from the government in creating and enhancing the infrastructure by creating new air bases, by creating airports, and all the connectivity. I am particularly interested in integration of aerospace with the other modes of transportation. And that's where we see a big role for organizations like SAE, which has a business vertical of automotive, aerospace, off-highway, and the entire integration of those transportation needs that arise for the country. Another major event that has caught up attention is seaplane services that are inaugurated recently. So there's a complete change which is expected, and let's get ready for that. And also one major factor that is opening up is modernization of military sector, and our senior colleagues here from the government we will be very happy to get a guidance from them as to how we should be positioning ourselves and preparing ourselves to this requirement of the country. There are, of course, very significant highlights that were earlier highlighted in the audiovisual that was presented to you. Some milestones such as successful light combat aircrafts which are designed, demonstrated, and successfully deployed in the country. I'm very happy that ADA is very closely working with SAE, and thank you, sir, for that support. And this two-day event is an outcome of all those collaborations. For SAE India, in fact, aerospace is one of the focus areas, and Bangalore section has been giving us the right support and initiatives. My predecessor in SAE India, Dr. Bala Bharadwaj, has been always a strong anchor, and today, unfortunately, he could not be present because of some illness, a sudden illness. But I sincerely thank him for all the guidance that he has been providing us. The technology that is brought to you is basically going to be very helpful in policy decisions. So for that reason, all the policy makers, research organizations, academics, and industry, when they are together, what comes out as a outcome of such conferences is very significant in deciding the growth. We hope to do that at the end of this conference, two-day conference. With that, I would extend a very warm welcome to all the dignitaries here, to all our sponsors, to the senior officers, to the host organization, HAL. I extend a very warm welcome, and I'm sure that the technical sessions that are ahead of us in today's session as well as tomorrow will be very, very relevant. They are all supported by very strong panel discussions as well as keynote addresses. And I look forward to a very, very successful conference. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam President. As President said, Dr. Bala could not be here, but he has sent his blessings. As usual, he has been a mentor, guide, and hopefully he will join us in the evening for the gala dinner. So that's one change in the inaugural session, whatever has been printed. The other small change is that we wanted to have a very short speech by Mr. Shrikant Sharma, HAL Management Academy, HAL has been very forthcoming, and they have given us this venue. Not only that, absolute cooperation. Thank you so much, Srikant Sharmaji and your team. May I now request you to say a few words, and then we'll proceed with
Good morning to all of you. On behalf of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and the HAL Management Academy, it is our proud privilege to be collaborating with SAE India and hosting this 2 days AEROCON conference. The world is transforming at a very rapid pace, and sky is the limit. If you look at what are the various changes that has been happening in the world, and we compare it, 2020 BC, 2020 AD, mobility solutions began with the discovery of the wheel sometime in 2020 BC. And since then, there has been rapid strides of progress in the mobility sector. And all of a sudden, we find that in 2020 AD, May 2020, the world had stopped. There was not a single flight which took to the skies. There was not just Bharat-1, there was a world Bandh. Mobility had stopped. That was hardly a year and a half ago. And now, how we have rebounded back. The inevitability of mobility for transforming and progress. And newer forms of mobility have taken shape. And this AEROCON conference is highlighting one of the most emerging modes of mobility, that is air transport. Air transport, friends, requires a combination of technology and enterprise. And this AEROCON conference has brought this confluence of technology and enterprise, led by HAL, the DRDO organizations, and a lot of R&D institutes and R&D organizations which are bringing in the technology, as well as the enterprise which is being provided by our various MSMEs and SMEs and other entrepreneurs. A combination of these two is surely going to take the air mobility world to greater heights. On behalf of HAL Management Academy, which is a lean, clean, green, and smart campus, I welcome all of you to this today's conference. We just not have a lean, clean, and green campus. We have green and smart students as well, who are part of our various PGDM programs, many of whom are volunteering over here. And a few months from now, will be joining our aerospace industry. Together, we can take this air mobility world soaring to greater heights. Welcome once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmaji. That was inspiring. That's a slight change in agenda, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting back to the agenda of the inaugural session. I'm sure you are from many walks of aerospace life, students, academicians, faculty, and I can see the director of the institute, R&D, and the MNC. So you're all keen to know what is going to happen in AEROCON 2022. To give you an overview of the second edition of AEROCON 2022, we would like to invite the chair of the Aerospace Forum, Mr. Ravi Shankar Mysore. Mr. Ravi is the chair of SA India's Aerospace Forum since February 2021, and he's been associated with us for several years. He has over 32 years of industry experience in engineering and retired as Vice President Engineering, Global Engineering and Technology Center, Collins Aerospace. He was one of the founding members of the NASSCOM Engineering Services Forum and served on the forum from 2005 to 2007. So Ravi, as a chair of SA India's Aerospace Forum, known for his Saturday calls, whether it is rain or shine, the call happens, and he is popular for the process compliance, come what may. Ravi, may I please request you to give the audience a brief about AEROCON. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Venki. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and dignitaries on the dais. It's my honor and privilege as chair of the organizing committee for AEROCON 2022 and chair of SA India Aerospace Forum to provide you an overview of the conference that is being held for the next 2 days. AEROCON, as you know, is a flagship conference of SA India Aerospace Forum and is held once in 2 years. This is the second edition of the conference. The first one was held in the virtual format in November 2020 because of the pandemic. This prestigious biennial international conference is organized by SA India in collaboration with SA International. This year, we are very fortunate that we are organizing this conference in partnership with HAL Management Academy, who also sponsor the venue for the conference. The theme of AEROCON 2022 is Autonomous Airborne Systems and addresses the recent trends, challenges, and opportunities in this area. The conference itself is steered by a prestigious steering committee with Dr. Satish Reddy, Secretary, Department of Defense R&D and Chairman, Defense DRDO as the patron, and Mr. Ahmed El-Sharbini, MD and Chief Engineer, Boeing India and Technology Center, as the chair of the steering committee. The steering committee has senior leaders from SA India and from across aerospace, engineering services, industry, and academia. I really want to thank the entire steering committee for their active support and guidance through the entire preparation for the conference. I'm also very happy to inform you that this conference format is very different from what we could do in November 2020. So this has attracted over 30 technical papers covering a wide range of topics in aerospace. These were selected from 125 abstracts that were submitted at the beginning of the conference. The abstracts went through a rigorous review by industry experts and finally shortlisted about 30 papers which are going to be presented in this conference. The topics covered a very wide range of topics, including AI/ML, modeling and simulation, aero engines, additive manufacturing, testing and validation, aerodynamic design, AR/VR, composites and advanced materials, safety and reliability, integrated vehicle health monitoring, blockchain, electric mobility, autonomous airborne systems, actuation systems, and avionics. The authors for these papers have come from various aerospace industries, engineering services organizations, and academia. These papers will be presented in 10 technical sessions. The technical sessions will be held in parallel in 2 halls. One, this main auditorium, and the parallel session will be held in Prerana Hall, which is the adjacent main building on this campus. So depending on your interest, you would please feel free to join any one of these technical sessions which will be held in parallel. In addition to the paper presentations, we have 4 plenary sessions and 3 panel discussions. I'm very happy to inform you that we have an illustrious list of speakers who will be delivering these keynote speeches and deliberating in panel discussions in some specific topics like AI/ML, autonomous systems, systems engineering, IVHM, and unmanned aircraft systems. I'm sure the conference will serve as a knowledge-sharing platform on all these topics, bringing together the best of industry, academia, and research to lay the roadmap for the future of aerospace and defense. I'm very grateful to all the authors and speakers for participating in this conference and sharing their perspectives and knowledge on these niche topics. It's very heartening and encouraging to note that the conference is sponsored by aerospace and engineering services companies and academic institutions. This conference would not have been possible without their sponsorship and support. Boeing is the title sponsor. Collins Aerospace, Infosys, and Hexagon are the platinum sponsors. HCL, Honeywell, and MathWorks are the gold sponsors. Sankhya Sutra Labs, UCAL, TCS are the silver sponsors. COMSOL and Moog are bronze sponsors. And HAL Institute of Technology and Science is the academia partner. And as mentioned earlier, HAL Management Academy has provided the venue for this event. I wish to thank all these sponsors for their sponsorship and support. I also would like to inform you that all these sponsors, they have put up stalls in the main lobby as well as in the first floor here. So I request all the delegates and attendees to go and take a look at what these companies are doing. One of the ideas of bringing together a conference like this is we really wanted to make sure that aerospace professionals are aware of what's happening in the industry across India. Last but not the least, members of the organizing committee and SEND office have worked tirelessly with passion and dedication over the last 1 year to organize this conference, and I'm very grateful to them. I hope all the attendees will benefit from this conference by sharing their views and knowledge on some of the most exciting topics in conference. On behalf of the organizing committee, I once again thank you all for coming for the conference, and I wish all the delegates and invitees a successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. AEROCON 2022 has got association with two premier institutions. One is the HAL Management Academy, and second one is the Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science, who've been supporting us for various events. Thank you, HAL and Hindustan. It is customary to say in any technical conference that we have good lineup of speakers. But I can tell you that for AEROCON 2022, it is not customary, it is exemplary. We really have worked hard to get the top of the notch technocrats from the multinational companies, from engineering solution providers, from defense public sector units, academia. I think you will definitely witness a fantastic lineup of technical sessions. And before we proceed further, we would like to hear from the patron of the conference, Dr. Satish Reddy, Dr. G. Satish Reddy, Secretary, Department of Defense R&D and Chairman of DRDO. DRDO, established in 1958, the R&D wing of the Ministry of Defense, and it is DRDO's pursuit of self-reliance and successful indigenous development, production of strategic systems and platforms such as Agni and Prithvi, light compact aircraft, Tejas, multi-barrel rocket launchers, Pinaka, air defense system, Akash, and many others have put our country on the top of the list, and we feel secure. I now request, he could not be present here, so I now request the event management to play the 2.5-minute video message from Dr. G. Satish Reddy, Chairman, DRDO, India.
At the outset, let me congratulate Society for Automatic Engineers India for conducting this conference on autonomous airborne systems, trends, challenges, and opportunities. I'm sure this conference will deliberate on the new trends in the airborne sector, particularly in the autonomous systems with intelligence, whether it is drones or UAVs or unmanned aircrafts and unmanned fighter aircrafts, and also the unmanned helicopters. A lot of technologies, whether it is in the control, guidance, navigation, and various other aspects of it, using artificial intelligence, are the systems which are coming up now. The country needs to gear up for these autonomous airborne systems. A lot of effort is going on in the country. The country has developed the male UAV, the Rustum 2, the Rustum 1. Many small and micro drones have been developed, and the drones area, the country is picking up in a big way. Lots of startups have come. Honorable Prime Minister other day has inaugurated the drone exhibition in India, wherein more than 100 industries have participated in that. The goal is to become a hub for these drone systems here in the country. And I'm sure in all other areas in the autonomous airborne systems, we should be able to lead. And for this conference becomes an important event. I'm sure all the experts in the country will be able to meet along with the industry partners, deliberate on developing these systems, producing these systems for the country and also for the world. I'm sure the SAE will be able to bring all the people, make them deliberate and submit a report and participate in the endeavor for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar. Very good.
Thank you, Dr. Satish Reddy, for your message. Your heart is there in the AEROCON. You couldn't be here. Thank you so much. There was a question by one of the potential sponsors. Venki, how do you conceive a conference? I said it is from a single thought, and he was amused. It just happens over the lunch or dinner, or the country's need for putting together technocrats and experts to give latest trends to the members. And I'm going to invite one such member who has conceived AEROCON. In fact, it was a late rainy day in Sheraton. Muni is smiling. Mr. Javaji Muniratham, right now the Engineering Education Board Chair and formerly the Chair of Aerospace Forum, and late Mr. Kannan, former Bangalore Section Chair, and Mr. Murli Iyer and myself put together a couple of thoughts that we've got to do a big conference in aerospace. And we are here today with over 400 registrations, 13 sponsors. It deserves a clap. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So next I'm going to call Mr. Murli Iyer. He holds an MBA in International Business and from Rochester Institute of Technology and Advanced Honors in Russian language. Yes, Russian language and literature, and a bachelor's degree in science from India. Mr. Iyer has worked and consulted for over 30 years with a number of organizations in the area of international business development. SAE International is one of them, corporate planning, strategic marketing, and cross-cultural negotiation. He has traveled extensively in Western, Eastern Europe, Mexico, Middle East, Central Asia, North and South Africa, and ASEAN region. Anything left out, Murli? As an executive advisor on global affairs, he is responsible for developing SAE's strategic alliances with overseas partners and providing support and advice to SAE President and Chief Executive Officer on strategic global issues. He serves on the board of SAE India and SAE India Foundation. May I now call upon Mr. Murli Iyer to talk a few words and introduce his CEO, David Shett. Over to you, Murli.
Thank you, Venki. Thank you. Namaskara, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries. There was supposed to be a 30-second intro, but went on, so thank you very much anyways.
I tried.
27 years back, SAE International's board of directors gave me a task. They say, India is one of our potential markets. Go and explore if SAE could be established over there. So I came with a single task and single aim of creating an SAE presence in this country. And lo and behold, I met the best of people here, best just like you. Starting from people from Mahindra and Mahindra to Maruti Suzuki to ARAI to TVS and so on and so forth, including HAL, defense, aerospace industry, Boeing, everyone said, yes, We do want a presence of SAE in this country. And thanks to your hard work and your participation, today this was made possible. So thank you very much, Madam President, Venki, the entire team, to all of you, the volunteers, the staff, you made it happen. SAE organizes 3 major world events. One is dedicated to the ground vehicles, one to aerospace, and the third one is to off-highway commercial vehicle area. Our aerospace conference is considered to be one of the largest in the world. We are the largest aerospace standards developing organizations in the world, period. We are the largest. We have the largest repository of knowledge on aerospace engineering. And I'm so happy that we have been able to replicate our model over in this country. And I'm sure that all of you and many more generations to come in future would be able to reap the benefit of this association between SAE International and SAE India. So once again, congratulating all of you for your very hard work in putting up a face-to-face conference that I thought was not possible initially. I had doubts, but you have done a wonderful job, Venki, so thank you very much. I was supposed to come here along with my CEO of the group, Dr. David Shutt. David has been a great friend of India for a long time, and he has visited this country many, many times. And I told him that I was coming, and he said, oh my God, aerospace, definitely I'm coming. Unfortunately, because of the Ukraine situation, and we had an emergency meeting in Brussels, he had to stay back. So he asked me, how else can I participate? I said, well, the best way would be to give a video speech. You can share your thoughts with the audience. And that's what we have done. I have brought a message from him for all of you, which I'll request you to play, please. So here is Dr. David Shutt, CEO of SAE Group.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and colleagues. I am David Shutt, the CEO of the SAE Group, which includes SAE International, the Performance Review Institute, and the SAE Industry Technologies Consortia. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to AEROCON 2022. I begin by congratulating our partner, SAE India, for organizing and hosting this seminal event in the high-tech aerospace city of India, Bengaluru. And reviewing the speaker and attendee list, it is clear that the world's experts are convening at this conference. Since SAE's inception, more than a century ago, our mission has driven us to support the advancement of mobility solutions in the aerospace and aviation industry. This commitment continues to this day, and you are an important part of it. Today, SAE has a thriving community of aerospace colleagues, as in a commanding position in the area of aerospace standards. SAE has a long, successful track record as the leader in connecting and educating mobility professionals to enable safe, clean, and accessible mobility solutions. We work with industry leaders, regulators, and other standards developing organizations around the world. Together, we promote the harmonization of advanced technical solutions through industry-leading global aerospace standards and certifications. We pride ourselves at being at the forefront of the convergence of cross-industry technologies, such as artificial intelligence, electrification, additive manufacturing, sustainability, and so many more. Our broad capabilities enable us to develop patent products like SAE on Q, which is transforming aerospace engineering design and development through digital standards. SAE also is engaging the next generation of aerospace engineers through our AeroConnect Challenge and Aero Design Series. These global competitions provide an opportunity for students to think critically about current and emerging technologies and propose solutions to challenges facing aerospace mobility. As the mobility industry moves forward at a pace never seen before, events like AEROCON continue to encourage aerospace engineers to seek solutions to solve current and future challenges and inspire the next generation of mobility engineers. As I conclude, I'd like to thank SA India for allowing me to welcome you here today. I'd like to thank all the contributors, volunteers, members, and staff who commit their time and expertise in making events like AEROCON a reality. Without you, none of this is possible. And most importantly, I want to thank each of you for joining us here at AEROCON 2022. I am confident that the next 2 days will provide you with the tools, resources, knowledge, and networking opportunities that will help you advance aerospace mobility solutions for the benefit of industry and humanity. Thank you.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to wish you all a very successful two-day event. I hope in future we will have this event on a regular basis, make SAE India's AEROCON a premier world event in days to come, and also we'll have many other competitions and events dedicated to engineering students from aerospace area. So best to you, and hopefully we'll have many more occasions to meet with each other. Thank you very much.
That's what the Aerospace Forum team is asking. In the year 2019, we did not have AEROCON. In 2020, we wanted to have, but the pandemic situation came, so it was virtual. 2022, we have joined hands with defense public sector units. Probably 2024, we will have much grandeur plans. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from our president, heard from our Aerospace Forum chair and the global advisor and HAL. It's time to listen to the distinguished scientist and Director General, Program Director, Combat Aircraft and Director of ADA, Dr. Girish Shantaram Diodare. Allow me to introduce Dr. Girish for a minute. Dr. Girish Diodare is a distinguished scientist, Director General, Program Director, and Director of ADA, Aeronautical Development Agency in Bangalore. He graduated with BTech and MTech from IIT Bombay. He earned his PhD in control theory from University of Waterloo in Canada in 1990. He started his career in DRDO as scientist in Center for AI and Robotics, CAIR, Bangalore. Later joined the ADA. He led the National Control Law team for LCA. He is involved in the design and development of flight control systems for the Indian light combat aircraft using both classical and modern control synthesis techniques. He has been accredited with several awards and honors. Some of them are Distinguished Alumnus Award, IIT Bombay, DRDO Award for Performance Excellence in 2013, Marconi International Fellowship Young Scientist Award in 1996, INAE Young Engineer Award in 1996, DRDO Technological Award for the year 1994, and to his credit, he has more than 40 publications in peer-reviewed international journals and conferences. We at SA India are very happy to invite Dr. Girish Shantaram Diodare to deliver the chief guest address in AEROCON 2022. May I please request, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Girish Diodare.
Good morning. Good morning to all the dignitaries on the dais and my friends in the audience. I can see many of them there. It was quite a pleasure to come for this conference, and in fact I was telling Madam President that maybe the name of SAE has to be augmented now. It's hardly an automobile organization. It's doing much more for aerospace. As was mentioned, the standards for aerospace are defined by SAE. So I think it's high time that we have to modulate the name. And so the topic of today's conference is very close to my heart. And the reason for that is today we have mastered or reached a very high level of maturity in all the conventional technologies, be it propulsion, aerodynamics, control, and so on. But what will distinguish the future weapon platforms, which I mean not only the unmanned, even the manned, is the incorporation of autonomy. And this conference is addressing most of those areas which will give an edge to the future military platforms which we are working on. Autonomy actually comes with its challenges, and these are not only technical. There are legal, ethical, policy, operational, those kind of challenges. And in fact, I'm a big fan of Asimov's science fiction. And way back in 1942, before he started writing his science fiction about robots, which actually was autonomous systems, he was talking about autonomous systems in all his sci-fi. He formulated 3 laws of robotics, which was, the first one was that autonomous system will not harm a human being or lead to harm to a human being by its inaction. The second law was that he will obey the human being, the autonomous system will obey the human being unless it violates the rule number 1, which affects his safety. And the third, of course, was the autonomous system will strive for its self-preservation or its protection as long as it doesn't rule the laws, violate the rules 1 and 2. So this was something he formulated in 1942, and he proposed that this should be embedded in any autonomous system made so that the system will destruct itself if it violates any of the laws. So clearly at that time, I don't want to get into the discussion of whether these laws are valid, whether they are applicable. That's a big debate going on in the literature. But what is more important is in 1942, he realized the challenges of autonomous systems, all these ethical, and that's when he started writing his books. And in fact, he titled these laws as Robot Handbook of 2058. And today in 2022, I think we have progressed faster than what Asimov anticipated. And we are very close to achieving what he is writing in his science fiction. So this is somehow science fiction coming to life today. Asimov also cautioned at that time that science gathers knowledge much faster than society gathers wisdom. So man gathers knowledge, but the wisdom to use that knowledge doesn't come as fast as he gets the knowledge. So this is another aspect. So even though we talk about autonomous systems, a fully autonomous system is still, I feel, a part of science fiction. When we say autonomous systems today, it is basically systems with autonomous capability. And this is what we are trying to do in our platforms also. It is not replace the human being with an autonomous system completely. I think that probably in the near future is not likely to happen so easily because of not technical issues. It is these other issues. Or because an autonomous system cannot have judgment. It cannot demonstrate humanity, ethics, and so on. So these are some of the challenges which are, especially working in military platforms, these are very important challenges we have to face. At ADA, we are developing future aircrafts, and we are looking at incorporating a lot of autonomy in the platforms. And this is not a technical talk, but I'll just highlight a little bit about what we are trying to do. So the first thing was, we worked with the Indian Air Force, and they said, we want something called an electronic pilot in the aircraft. So it's a manned platform, but we want an electronic pilot. It's like an aide to the pilot who is sitting there as an advisory agent, trying to tell the pilot what to do. So initially there were some abortive attempts at designing this. I'm saying it's abortive because what do? Okay, you get something requirement, you give a project to some institution and say, okay, make an electronic pilot. They say, we don't know what to do. So finally we realized that this has to come from the pilot. This has to be conceptualized by the pilot. What does he want sitting in the cockpit? The system to do, this autonomous system. And in that aspect, we were very lucky. In ADA, right from the beginning, we always have a group of very experienced test pilots who sit with us and participate in the design. In fact, the earlier chief was a test pilot with us. The current deputy chief is a test pilot. A vice chief earlier was a test pilot. So all these people sit with us And today, in fact, we are very lucky to have even a test pilot who is an MTech from a reputed institution. So we made these pilots sit together and try to conceptualize what is it they need. And basically, we had to get into the pilot's mind and then convert their requirements into a machine representation. And this is what we have done today. And what is the need for such an electronic pilot? The problem today is with the advances in technology in all domains, the aircraft is flooded with information. It saturates the human mind. And in fact, the systems which are there to help the pilots actually end up impeding his operation of the equipment with so much information. So we need some way to complement his skills with an electronic pilot. So the whole role of a pilot in today's platforms needed to be re-examined, how he is going to fly the aircraft and how he is going to use this technology. So the electronic pilot was essentially an aid to the pilot in every form of his mission, every part of his mission. It would increase his situational awareness and reduce the workload in a dynamic, highly changing environment. So the purpose of this autonomous system is to amplify human decision making. It is not to replace the decision maker. The human decision maker is still there, but it amplifies his decision making capabilities with this autonomous system. It plays an advisory role, but, and as we have today in LCA as well, we have modes which take over control of the aircraft if the system senses that the pilot is getting into an unsafe region. So this electronic pilot normally will play an advisory role, but in exceptional situations could actually take over control and bring the aircraft back safely. So in fact, if you look at the MCA, which is the 5th generation platform today, there is a requirement that we go to 6th generation, and in 6th generation platforms, one of the requirement is an optionally manned cockpit. That is, you have a manned aircraft, and if you want, in some situations, you could also fly it unmanned. And that is where this electronic pilot really comes in. And of course, there the ethical issues and all those come in, who's going to press the trigger and who's going to give the decisions. So those are the major issues there. So as I said, we talked to the pilots, defined the requirements, and broke it down into functional modules, well-defined functional modules and mathematical definitions of each of these. Then we had a workshop, an online workshop during COVID, where more than 40 academic institutions, labs, startups attended. And today we have all these modules taken up by various agencies, including startups. Now the beauty of research in autonomous systems is that unlike, say, something like stealth happens in closed doors in very secret labs, whereas autonomous systems is open. Anybody can work on it. In fact, the commercial world can contribute in a big way in this, and that's what we have found, that startups and academic institutions have come forward very enthusiastically for this. So briefly, what are the components of this electronic pilot? The first one is, of course, information fusion, which is critical. With all the sensors that are coming on the aircraft, increasing day by day, the fusion of that information and showing it in a form which is usable to the pilot is very critical. So this involves a lot of AI, machine learning, and all those algorithms, because even the validity of each information has to be ensured. And the information, of course, blows up because we have data links. So there are network resources feeding in information, sometimes about the same target, and trying to decipher this in a whole clutter of information, which a pilot just cannot handle. A human being cannot process this information fast enough and take decisions. So this is where this kind of a system is very, very useful. The second part is situation assessment. In a very dynamic environment, in a war environment, assessing the threat, trying to find targets of opportunity, as well as trying to make sure your aircraft is safe. So the health monitoring of the aircraft, along with all these tasks, is another critical activity which is handled by the electronic pilot, which brings up the threats as per the priority. So, and IVHM is very important here because it's better to know the failures in advance before they actually happen, so that you can take actions accordingly, preemptively. So IVHM, I'm very happy, is a topic in this seminar, which normally wouldn't have found a place in an autonomous systems seminar. And of course, it supports the pilot with more efficient diagnosis and management of all the malfunctions which are likely to occur. The third module is on combat identification. Now, this is identification of targets, friend, foe, or neutral. Today, enemy targets learn to fool us by trying to pretend as friends. So there are things to be done there. It is not just simple identification of friend or foe in a hostile environment. So non-cooperative target recognition is a very important area which is required to be built into this system. Next is, of course, target recognition. So detect the target, recognize, and classify them, clustering algorithms to classify the targets and fuse them together. Another part is the electronic warfare decision support system. So in a war environment, different threats demand different actions, and all sometimes concurrently. So we need to evaluate multiple options and decide on the most suitable action for each threat, and also deploy countermeasures automatically if required. So this again has to be done by this electronic pilot, because the pilot is concentrating on his other mission. So he cannot be doing all this. Today it's just impossible to do all this because the threats are also smart. So they are also very smart. They know how to outperform you. So this is critical for his war effort. And lastly, of course, the dynamic route planning. So before he starts on a mission, to evaluate which is the path which will lead to the maximum survivability is also critical to determine. And this is dynamic because the threats keep on changing. So this is another activity, is like the conventional robot planning, but in a much more constrained fashion here. And there are a lot of uncertainties in this. Then the pilots also felt that a combined vision system is something which is very critical. May not be so much for an unmanned vehicle, but very critical for a pilot. So essentially, we have the synthetic vision system where we have the digital terrain map and so on, but you place it based on the aircraft position, which could be inaccurate sometimes, which could lead to very catastrophic results. So we are combining that with the enhanced vision system, using the optical sensors and so on to make sure that you correlate the two images and fuse it together to give a very high fidelity information about the terrain and obstacles. Then, of course, we have automatic collision avoidance, ground collision avoidance, which is already built in LCA, and also collision avoidance with other aerial objects. So these are the main ingredients of this electronic pilot that is now being developed. And it is, I would say it's an autonomous system. It's a system with autonomous capabilities. I wouldn't say AMCA is an autonomous aircraft right now, and I don't think we want to make it. We don't want to make a fighter aircraft which is completely autonomous. You cannot predict the results of that. Another aspect where we are working very aggressively is manned-unmanned teaming. This is an important aspect where we have autonomous platforms working with a manned aircraft. So essentially, the manned assets are commanding and controlling these unmanned assets and going in a swarm. So the advantage of this, of course, is that the unmanned assets can take up dangerous tasks or difficult tasks where the manned asset is controlling them, or also take up dull tasks, like reconnaissance. You don't want an aircraft flying round and round, round and round for hours. It could be done by an unmanned aircraft, which could be monitored by the manned aircraft. Of course, you would cover much more additional ground with this whole swarm and improve the situational awareness of the whole area. The challenges here are, of course, secure data links between the unmanned objects and the manned aircraft. Enhanced level of autonomy in the unmanned systems itself. Now, this is very critical because you don't want to send a whole lot of information from each unmanned vehicle, which will saturate this manned aircraft completely if there are many assets there. So that information has to be concentrated, and a small stream has to come here to the manned aircraft. And finally, the human-machine interface. Now, a pilot sitting there controlling 10 unmanned vehicles is quite a task. So how do you do this human-machine interface? So these are the things we are building in the manned aircraft to make sure you are capable of manned-unmanned teaming. This, interestingly, we are doing today using LCA as a platform, along with 2 unmanned vehicles. So we are doing this task. There is a startup who is working with us and developing these concepts so that you can do manned-unmanned teaming, because today we just talk about it. We haven't developed the ingredients of it, and that is what is being done on LCA itself. The other thing, of course, is automatic takeoff and landing. That is critical for optionally manned aircraft, which we are targeting. And this we are doing on LCA again, with the pilot sitting in the loop, so that in case there are any issues, he can take over. But we are proving these concepts, and for this we are using a relative GPS, not differential, relative GPS, and also doing it for landing on the carrier, for which relative GPS is very critical. So all these are technologies which I would say in a manned aircraft are autonomous technologies. And I'm sure in this conference, people will talk about many of these areas. So we are very eager to follow up on this and want to work closely with SAE and its partners for these aspects. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a very successful conference, a 2-day conference. I'm very happy you could do it physically. Last year, I think I participated online, so I don't know who listened to my talk or what happened to it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Girish Deodare. I think it was an eye-opener for many of us on what ADA is doing and what ADA is planning to do. And the good news is that there is a welcome invitation to work with us. The first initiative, Dr. Deodare, is already SAE India and ADA is organizing a 2-day workshop on the IVHM topic. Dr. Ravi Kumar, GVV, our pillar for Aerospace Forum, is very closely working with Dr. Sudhagar of ADA. We will very soon put it up after necessary discussions and approvals on the website of both. Yes, prognostics, sir. True, sir. So, the next speaker, the guest of honor, is from Boeing. And ladies and gentlemen, Boeing has given us a precedent. Boeing has given one Kripal, and Boeing has given us one Jabba. Boeing will give us one Mr. Bala Gurunatha Chidambaram, correct, sir? Very soon. In fact, SAE International and Boeing work very closely, and in SAE India also we started a couple of years back on various initiatives, and I would like to introduce the next speaker, guest of honor, Mr. Bala Gurunatha Chidambaram, Director of Autonomous Technologies, Airspace Efficiency, Boeing Research and Technology. Boeing seems to be having several Bala connections. This Bala also knows our Bala. He has an enterprise role in autonomy across Boeing, coordinating developmental activities on various platforms. In his 25 years career at Boeing, Bala Chidambaram has held leadership roles in diverse areas, including modeling and simulation, electro-hydraulic actuation systems, software standards for vehicle health management, and secure connectivity solutions. Dr. Chidambaram's team have supported platforms including C-17 Globemaster III, CH-14 Chinook, V-22 Osprey, the International Space Station, 787 Dreamliner, the 777X, and various unmanned vehicles. Bala has a bachelor degree in engineering from IIT Madras, and he earned his PhD in engineering from University of California at Berkeley, and an MBA in finance from University of California at Los Angeles. May I, on behalf of all of you, welcome Dr. Bala Gurunatha Chidambaram to deliver his address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Venki. It's really a pleasure to be here. I was actually born in Bangalore many years ago, but it's...
That's a slide.
okay, that's advanced. Okay. So it's very pleasant memories of all my summer vacations were in Bangalore, so very pleasant memories of Bangalore. I also really enjoyed your presentation, Dr. Girish. In fact, I would say that you pretty much made my presentation, so I don't have to say too much more. It's pretty much very similar capabilities and functions. And then finally, Bala Bharadwaj and I go back almost 20 years when he was at Boeing. And then one other thing, just kind of like, I'm from South India, I'm from Chennai, and we all have long names. And the Boeing system does not have enough characters in the email systems for the name. So, it became Balaguruna. Balagurunathan is my name. And it's also very nice to come to a venue where, people can pronounce your name and, so I would say it's a pleasure. So, okay, let's see. I wanted to hit upon 3 areas in this presentation. One is kind of like high-level definition and context, and Dr. Girish covered a lot of that earlier. I wanted to talk a little bit about capabilities and the different autonomous platforms, ranging from how do you provide decision support to a pilot, up the spectrum to more autonomous vehicles, and then some of the challenges and opportunities. There's a lot of buzz about AI and ML, and so that provides some promising areas, especially in the mission space, but then what are the challenges that come with that? I also related a lot to I was an Asimov fan. I remember those laws of robotics when I was reading them 40 years ago, and never thinking at some point I'll be working in autonomy in the future. So this is just a working definition we use at Boeing. So in Boeing, I have a role to coordinate autonomy across military and commercial platforms. And so, human beings are excellent at managing complexity. Machines are not. We know how to respond to uncertainties and so on. So we use this generally as a working definition. Vehicles performing tasks for and with human in domains that are unstructured, uncertain, or complex. So you can't just go with rote automation. You need the system to have some level of intelligence. And I'll get into some examples of this later on. And then I also wanted to kind of draw a little bit on what the SAE is. There's a lot we can learn from the auto industry, what the SAE has done in terms of the levels of autonomy, levels 0 to 5. And broadly, you can think of them as like assistance functions, like 0 to 2, and then kind of like more automation as you go higher up the scale. Broadly, you can think of it that way. And in aerospace, that's been adopted. There's a similar levels of 1 to 5, going from deterministic solutions, automation, to higher degrees of automation with non-deterministic solutions. But it's a useful reference. I put a link there. I think that was just this year they released the latest update to the definitions. And then, of course, there's additional, so in some ways, autonomy in the air is an easier problem. It's not as complex an environment, but then you can't pull over to the side of the road if something happens. So in some ways, it's a more difficult problem. Broadly, if you take these lower level functions, we try to kind of break them into these tasks like aviate and navigate, which is basically autonomy, but you don't go into the more on the commercial side of things, aviate and navigate. And then mission and teaming, where you go more into the autonomous on the military side of things. So this is just some context for the rest of the presentation. Across Boeing, as part of a study, we looked at the different ConOps for autonomy. And in the center here, you have several ConOps. And I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 of them in specific, the urban air mobility and ISR. And then around the chart is like, what is it that autonomy is enabling, right? So you can look at safety, you can look at auto land functions. Garmin won the 2020 Collier Trophy for auto land systems. You're flying, something goes wrong, you hit a button, it's going to automatically figure out the trajectory, go and land safely, right? So autonomy, which we think is like scary, is actually enabling safety in a sense in that context. Mission expansion, you can have like, by changing the software payload, you can have multiple missions that you can, from a military standpoint, give to the vehicles. That's another example. Efficiency and performance, you can think of in a commercial airplane context where you're trying to come up with the optimal altitude or your trajectory planning, for instance, for fuel savings. And then can you kind of use like AI machine algorithms? And there's some work we're doing with Collins actually in this area. And then in general, increased capabilities. There's limitations on, human beings can deal very well with uncertainties, but there are limitations just in human capacity, like G-forces and so on, so increased capacity. So I'm going to hit specifically upon a couple of areas highlighted here, but I kind of wanted to give you a high-level context of the different missions and concepts. And then in the center, you kind of have like, where am I? So you're kind of trying to address the perception problem. And then you're saying like, what's around me? So that's kind of like the environment mapping. And then you're saying like, what's around me? They're doing some things. I need to understand what's around me are doing. And then how do I respond to that? That's the motion planning and decision. And then once you know that, it gets into the controller, and then the control goes off into your actuation system. So this is kind of like a high-level flow. And the motion planning and decision, of course, is a big part of it. Motion planning more from a commercial standpoint, but then you can club all the defense into the decision-making part of it. And then in autonomy, it's an autonomous system, so you need some kind of a supervisor to look over it and make sure that when something goes wrong, you can kind of adapt and respond to it. So again, this is who was one of the members of the was from, I think, talked about Waterloo. This was actually some course. I got into autonomy about 3 years ago when I was doing a lot of courses to kind of understand the space a little deeper. And this was actually from University of Waterloo. There's a professor there who, it's on Coursera, I put the link out there, but it was a really, really good deep dive into the different function of autonomy in the on the auto side. A lot of it applies, of course, to the other areas as well. So. This is the point I made earlier about Dr. Girish could have given my presentation. So we did a similar exercise at Boeing in terms of, you start with the ConOps. Next level is what are the capabilities. So there's only a subset here, but there's about 12 capabilities of autonomous vehicles across different Boeing platforms that we identified. One is more like pilot assistant and capability augmentation. So it's the point that was made about the complexity in terms of what the pilot has to get, and then how do you kind of prioritize that? How do you provide decision support to the pilot? He still makes the decision. He or she still makes the decision, but then kind of like what's the support you can provide there? And then the human autonomy teaming. Later on, I'll give you some examples of each of this later in the presentation, but human autonomy teaming. So, there's something called the loyal wingman, where you have another vehicle kind of doing a lot of the operations, but the pilot is doing in another vehicle the main aspects of the mission. Detect and avoid. You're flying in the airspace, and there are other vehicles around you. And how do you autonomously detect these vehicles and take evasive measures? So it could be like, depending upon the class of the UAV, it could be like electro-optics, optical-based systems, like for a smaller vehicle. But if it's a larger vehicle, then you have like some kind of a radar-based system. So there's a variety of ways you could detect and avoid. Contingency management, we are very good when things go bad. As humans, we can adapt a lot. What do you do for contingency management? What happens if GPS is denied, or your health management tells you that something is wrong? How do you adapt to those? Contingency management. Cooperative and adversarial autonomy. For the longest time, there's been a lot of talk about like the teaming on the autonomy, but it's starting to become real. Some of you may recall the attack in Saudi Arabia on the oil fields. That was probably the first instance of like a whole bunch of drones going in and carrying out that mission, right? So it's starting to get mainstream. So cooperative autonomy, adversarial autonomy is just like the far out thing there, where you have these machines fighting machines, and that futuristic thing, the adversarial autonomy. And there's some techniques in reinforcement learning and some programs that are being worked in that area. And then finally, the trust. How do you trust autonomy? I mean, when you talked about the 3 laws, I was like, oh, it'd be so easy. We just have to codify these laws. It should do no harm. Okay, just figure out from that, derive the requirements, guarantee that the hardware and the software will do no harm, which is easier said than done. So, Like I said, this is just a subset, but there's about a dozen of these different capabilities. And then we came out about some component functions, 300 component functions, 300 odd component functions. So this is a fairly low level of detail. We did not go as far as, I think you said there were mathematical models, Dr. Girish, on many of these functions. Some of them we have, but some of them we haven't gotten there yet. I think we covered a lot of them. Communications, HMR, he covered a lot of them. Planning and decision making. This is just 5 of those 300. So if you take detect and avoid, what are the things you need to do if you want to detect and avoid? You have to see what's around you. So you need the perception. These are the dependencies. And then you have to do your planning and decision making, and then you're taking your control measures, right? So how do you decompose the capabilities into these different functions? And then I actually had the graph lines showing the connections for some examples. And I was presenting to my senior leadership, and this is too complicated, don't put all these lines there. So I kind of came up with a simplified version here. And then the implementation, right? So in the auto industry, they can simulate at scale. Google, they have driven some X billion miles in simulation. They're very high fidelity simulation. So what's the cloud? You cannot do exhaustive testing. So how do you get some guarantees of safety in terms of your simulation capability, the fidelity of your simulations, and then kind of like the cloud infrastructure to go off and to do that? And another important area, I think, is they talked about the SAE was talking about the standards. What are the standards that are required to be part of these infrastructure software framework and tools? Let's see, how am I doing on time? I don't want to. 40 minutes is that? Okay, all right, pick up the pace. So these are some examples across Boeing. In the interest of time, I'm not going to hit all of them, but the top layer is kind of like space, autonomous docking, for instance. Right? That's not the whole autonomous vehicle, but some aspect of autonomy of the function that needs to be made autonomy. The second row is kind of like a few of them. I'll hit just a couple there. ATS is air power teaming system. This is the manned unmanned teaming. So you have a primary vehicle with the pilot. He's going off and doing his mission. And then there's another vehicle that supports him in that. So he can offload he or she can offload some of those functions that need to be performed there's a comm link. And so the man-and-man teaming approach kind of comes in there. MQ-25 is a autonomous vehicle for carrier-based refueling. So again, earlier the point was made about relative GPS. How do you kind of go in and land on an aircraft carrier? So that's one example there. And then if you look at the next row, WISC is Boeing's big investment in the commercial autonomy. It's a fairly large investment. The vision here is by 2027, you have an autonomous passenger air vehicle certified, which is, I think, a very autonomous, which is, I think, is a really, really, really big challenge. We're doing a lot of work in this area. And I can also, later on, I know time's limited, we can go into many of these details if you want to talk more. Another one I would say is ScanEagle, the ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance applications. And some of the things that were talked about earlier in terms of target recognition, tracking, classification, and so on from a military standpoint. So, Caravan is an autonomy demonstrator that Boeing commercial airplane is using to mature many of the technologies, many of the things that we're talking about earlier in terms of automatic takeoff and landing in an airport following the center line, those kinds of things are the Caravan. And then Boeing also has a bunch of underwater vehicles. And I'm going to skip that just in the interest of time. You've all seen the dream stuff in terms of, you land in the Bangalore airport and you call. I think, Dr. Rashmi, you were talking about the vision of combining the service. You call, just like you call an Uber, you call the vehicle and come in. And so I don't have to go into the details. I was doing some research. I was looking at the 2021 conference that SAE had organized on unmanned, where the Prime Minister laid out the vision of by 2030, India will be the hub for drones. And then they kind of went into the technical details. I'm not going to go over this because I think this was the vision is getting closer to being reality. I can't wait for it. I remember when I first joined Boeing, I could not believe this. You could, traffic is very congested in the Los Angeles area, so I was just a fresh student, right, or out of college, joined Boeing, but you could call somebody and they'll bring the helicopter outside and then take you to like another center, and then they realized it was too expensive and they canceled it, but for a few months I enjoyed it. And now it's like, Whisk will be a reality. I work very closely with Whisk, and yeah. I also wanted to just say, this is a forum for sharing, and if there's any way we can help in, there was a lot of talk about the different capabilities and functions. There's multiple levels of engagement, obviously, between the India and US, but at my level, which is like research, if there's some problems that we can work together on, I would love to get engaged there. And the other thing I would say is I have a distributed R&D team across different areas in the world, including a team in India. So the usual marketing stuff. Please let me know if any of you are interested in this area and would like to talk more. This one is, I don't know if I can get it to fly, we'll see. I don't know, can you click on this so it starts moving? Next one? Next one. Okay, so it was kind of funny, right? When this came, it was like, they were like, the noise is not working, no? Is the audio not working? So it turns out like, I don't know if it was part of marketing or something, they want to show this is a very quiet vehicle, so there is no audio. It's not this quiet, but there is no audio, but this is the Whisk. This is the passenger air vehicle that we are shooting for certification by 2028. It's an enormous challenge. I was reading about the Indian drone market. There's about 200 startup companies, I understand, in this area, similar number in the US. And there's actually a reality index, Advanced Aerial Mobility Reality Index.com, which tells you like all the efforts that are going on and the top 10 that are most likely to succeed, which is really interesting. So yeah, this is, I'm not gonna, you can see the video on YouTube or something, but this is a vehicle that Larry Page set up, 10 years ago, and then last year they decided to go commercial, and now they're full steam in trying to make it autonomy, which is an amazing challenge. We are going to a certified autonomous vehicle by 2027 or 2028, which I think will be pretty incredible. The next chart is going to be a little bit noisy. I hope it doesn't, I wanted to give you a heads up. I wanted to switch from the urban mobility to an ISR. This is some work we're doing with MIT where you have multiple drones teaming together to perform a surveillance task. And I included some reference to the papers as well as the GitHub code and stuff. But you can kind of see like the teaming becomes more important and how are they kind of combining and teaming together to perform a surveillance task. So they have limited amount of energy, and I'm talking now because it's going to be loud and noisy on the next one. There's limited amount of energy, so you're kind of trying to balance the information gathering and the ISR function itself. So anyway, this is just the Whisk one, and then this is for the urban mobility example, and then the next example is kind of like this one. I'll skip this. I won't go into the details of the paper itself, but you can put some references out there for both the paper and if you want more information. So Boeing has a relationship with MIT. This is a lab in MIT. We work with Professor John Howe on the R&D side for developing some of these capabilities. The application here is actually ISR when you have denied environments, which is becoming extremely important. Can you kind of collaborate across these with these vehicles, multiple agents on the ground and so on in denied environments? So collaborative ISR, or if GPS is denied, maybe together the vehicles can figure out where they are. So yeah. And I kind of separated AI. AI is a capability enabler for computer vision, and so this is just a flavor of the different kinds of algorithms. I was presenting to some of our senior leaders yesterday, and they were like, you have to plan for certification. So when you're doing your algorithm development, what algorithms can you, in autonomy, what algorithms can you pick where there's some chance of saying, I can establish some bounds on the behavior, right? So that goes in, that's an important problem to start looking at. Okay, so this is, so I told you like AI is an enabler, but AI also comes with V&V challenges. This is a program called Assured Autonomy. It's a DARPA program called Assured Autonomy, where there's a variety of approaches to guarantee the safety of an AI-enabled autonomous system. So there are things like how do you design the neural networks that you can have bounds in the performance? Is there some kind of runtime monitoring so if the neural network fails or gives you a bad result, it's still not going to impact your safety? This is a variety of approaches, and Boeing's role is to work with about half a dozen, and this, by the way, this is all on the web. There's a DARPA-assuredautonomy.org, I think. You can go have a look at it. But Boeing's role is, earlier on I told you about the Caravan demonstrator. There's several autonomous behaviors on Caravan, like autonomous taxi, vehicle following a vehicle on the runway, autonomous detect and avoid in the air, where Boeing has these vehicles and these different universities are testing out the algorithms on the vehicles with the goal of trying to do V&V of AI and ML as applied to autonomy. So that's the DARPA Assured Autonomy program in a nutshell. This is just like some pillars of testing autonomy. I think I'll skip this. This is rather obvious. You know, you start off with your modeling and simulation. This is the point I made earlier on about Google and the auto industry having kind of cracked the problem in terms of high fidelity simulation with the gaming engines, Unreal or Unity and so on. And then you go to surrogate platforms because there's some features you want to test in an inexpensive way. So Whisk, for example, has several surrogate platforms that you do the testing on. And then I also talked on the DARPA Assured program about the runtime assurance. You know, you have all these noise and neural networks and algorithms, but can you provide some guarantees of safety in terms of runtime assurance? And then standards, you know, the open system architectures, you know, what are the standards we need to kind of build this and test this at scale? I think the next chart is my last chart. Let's see. This is again what we learned from the auto industry. You can go and, if you want an autonomy stack, you can go and get it in the auto industry. There's apex.ai and it kind of goes over the different layers. One doesn't still exist in the aerospace industry, but you can think about it as like the cloud infrastructure and tools for your data management, your processing, your simulation at scale. Then you can think about data sets. That's the gold here. You know, can we get like data? Boeing has 20 different autonomy programs, and they all do their own stack, software stack, data, and so on. So how do you kind of make this thing shareable? You know, I was interested in using LiDAR for some applications. I went to Waymo, got the data set. There's a standard data set standard. You can get it. Go to Collab and pick up the file, and you can very quickly, in half an hour you can go up and running. Right? Boeing is a great guy. I have 25 years at Boeing, so I'm a lifer. But it'll take me three days to get an approval to kind of request a data set. So, and that's all I had. So I'll open it up for questions. Let's see. I took some notes here on the earlier presenters. Rashmi, related to your comment on integration of aerospace, the whole integration. Just call the vehicle. Srikanth talked about the rapid transformation, technology and enterprise, right? The whole, not just the vehicle and the airspace, and this was highlighted at the last 2021 SAE conference, not just the vehicle and the airspace, but the regulations and those parts of that as well. And then, let's see, Murli, you talked about the standards, the importance of standards, the role SAE has played, and this is the real way to solve the problem here. And of course, like I said, Dr. Girish gave my presentation already with the capabilities and all that. So, when you talk through the list of electronic pilots, I was listening very carefully. It's like, did we include this in our capability and breakdown? You saw the breakdown, right? The 3-level breakdown. Did we include this? And so again, I'll conclude by saying, it's been really a pleasure to be here, and I lead Boeing R&D and autonomy, and if looking forward to working with universities or with the government to help with the needs of India in this area. And I also have a global team in about 5 different countries, and we're always looking for people to help us on this very exciting journey. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bala Gurunatha Sidambaram. In fact, I checked with our team. it cannot be Guruna, it has to be Bala Gurunatha Saravana. So, sorry about that. So, I think we have a question.
How you are looking at its upcoming regulation? You said 2025, right? Upcoming regulations, already we are not set fully with the drone. And second, we do have a lot of problem in air traffic management with the current aircraft and other things. And which would be the possible time that we have a lot of these kind of urban air mobilities flying around us with, like, air traffic management system and regulation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So WISC, the thing in autonomy is like, it's fledgling, right? There isn't if you look at the FAA and the part certifications, there isn't like one which says like this part certification of autonomy. So that WISC is trying to go through something called Part 25. There's a series of parts in the US on how do you do for certification. And then for operation, they have a different part. So it's still developing, working with the FAA. There's a team in WISC that's trying to say like, how do we gather information from how commercial airplanes were certified and different kinds of airplanes were certified, pull from that and create a certification basis. On the unmanned, on the ATM side, that's a very exciting area. There's UTM. If you look at, so I actually also have the ATM R&D team in Boeing, and there's actually folks in India working that. There was actually a study we did for the Airports Authority that we just completed in terms of modernization of ATM. But in the UTM space, there is a lot of work going on with technology demonstrators. There's one in Germany for something called, so FAA has something called Beyond Visual Line of Sight. We're trying to look at, that's a contract in my organization, where we're looking at communications, navigations, and surveillance equipment and the limitations on that equipment in terms of going autonomous, getting these vehicles into the national airspace. So there is a fair amount of work. I'd be happy to talk in more detail. And I'm somewhat aware of that work in that area. Part of that is in my organization.
Thank you, Dr. Bala. Thank you, Dr. Karunagan, for the last question. Sorry, have a seat, sir, please. Yeah. We are really running tight. We've got real good technical sessions coming up. We have another formality to be done, so we need to recognize the dignitaries. That will take a few more minutes before we sign off the inaugural session. So may I request the volunteers to be ready with the mementos, and are you ready? Good to go? Okay. May I now request our Madam President to give small memento to the token, as a token of appreciation to Dr. Girish Diodare. A round of clap, please. Photos, please. May I request Madam President again to give a memento as a token of appreciation to Dr. Gurunatha Chidambaram, Bala Gurunatha Chidambaram. Thank you, madam. One more for your friend, Mr. Murli Iyer, our global advisor, SA International. So may I request, madam, again to give it to Mr. Shrikant Sharma, General Manager, HAL Management Academy. Thank you. So, Mr. Ravi, one to our Madam President. May I request Ravi Shankar Mysore, Chair, Aerospace Forum. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will break for a short break. I just wanted to make a few logistic announcements. This is a clean, green campus. So, under single-use plastic, is avoided in the campus. That is why you're not finding the water. So water is filled in a water bottle and they reuse it. There are enough water points in the campus, so you will have to walk up to that and then drink that. So this is one change from the traditional conference style. And there are restrooms on both sides. Technical sessions are in different halls. We have one session in the main hall, which is the main auditorium here, one in the Prerana, which is in the same building. You will have to just walk up to the main building, which is the administrative building, which is just a few yards away. And we have a fantastic HAL Management Academy canteen. That is where we serve the vegetarian buffet for today and tomorrow. So thank you so much. And this concludes the inaugural session for AEROCON 2022. Thank you so much. Join us in 15 minutes.